From the headquarters of the American Radio Relay League in Newington, Connecticut, this is ARRL Audio News for Friday, January 6th, 2017. This program is produced by the ARRL, the National Association for Amateur Radio, and features news highlights compiled from the ARRL letter, found on the web at arrl.org. I'm Sean Kutzko, KX9X.
And I'm your co-host, Carla Pereira.
In this week's report, December's FEMA interoperability exercise is deemed a success, with monthly exercises set for 2017.
The FCC denies Expert Linear's request for a waiver of the 15 dB rule.
And HAMSI members showcase amateur radio-related research at the American Geophysical Union's fall meeting.
These stories and others, plus Bruce Page, KK5DO, with this week's satellite update, all coming up now.
Hi, I'm ARRL member Bruce Blackley, WD4LBR of Montpelier, Virginia, and you're listening to ARRL Audio News.
Laura Goudreau, KG7BQR, Regional Emergency Communications Coordinator for FEMA Region 10, said a December 21st Region 10 interoperability communications exercise on 60 meters went well. FEMA Region 10, which consists of Alaska, Idaho, Oregon, and Washington, now has announced that it will hold similar exercises each month in 2017, with all radio amateurs welcome to participate. We had 48 check-ins, of which 42 were amateurs, Goudreau said of the December event. It was very successful and also included our first digital test. The COMEX event consisted of check-ins from authorized state, tribal, federal, and amateur radio stations to test HF interoperability in case of an emergency or disaster response. The interoperability aspect between federal stations and amateur radio licensees was coordinated and authorized by the NTIA and the FCC. The net included a digital component intended as a one-way broadcast to test FEMA's ability to send messages and for remote stations to receive them. Goudreau said that while there's still room for improvement in the digital area, overall, she was happy with how the exercise played out. During 2017, FEMA Region 10 will hold a communications exercise on the third Wednesday of each month from 1500 to 2100 UTC. The initial exercise will take place on January 18th. The intent of each COMEX is to test and exercise interoperable communications during a major disaster where communications infrastructure would be significantly damaged or destroyed, a FEMA Region 10 announcement said. FEMA Region 10 will use the call sign WGY910. Others taking part in these exercises will include, but are not limited to, other FEMA stations, SHARES stations, and Air Force and Army MARS stations. All stations are encouraged to participate. More information on FEMA's monthly interoperability exercises is available on the ARRL website.
The coordinator of ARRL's WD2XSH 600-meter experimental group, Fritz Raab, W1FR, said in his latest quarterly report that 630 meters is becoming quite active, with both amateur radio and Part 5 experimental stations taking advantage of the band, which is still not available in the U.S. Band activity has been very high, and there are often more whisper stations on 472 kilohertz than on 80 or 160 meters, Raab said. WHISPER, which stands for Weak Signal Propagation Reporter, is software designed for transmitting and receiving low-power transmissions to test propagation paths on the medium wave and shortwave bands. In a sense, 630 meters has become a mainstream ham band, in spite of not being authorized in the U.S., Raab said. To boost activity, a second annual midwinter 630-meter operating activity night will take place on the weekend of February 4th. Details will be announced. Raab also said in his report that propagation on the band appears to be improving as the solar cycle declines. A number of openings from the U.S. West Coast deep into Europe have been reported. Raab noted in his report that it appears more than 100 DXCC entities have permission to operate on 630 meters. Amateurs interested in 630 meters must wait until the FCC determines the specific Part 97 rules it must frame to permit operation in the new bands. That process is ongoing at the FCC, but the change in administration and the consequent resignation of the current FCC chairman has put FCC action on any proceeding on hold, at least until a new chairman is in place.
The FCC has denied a request by Expert Linears America, LLC, to waive the Part 97 rules of the amateur service which limit amplifier gain. Expert of Magnolia, Texas, distributes linears manufactured by SPE in Italy. Its waiver request, filed in June, would have allowed Expert to import an amplifier capable of exceeding the current 15 dB gain limitation as it awaits FCC action on its April petition to revise the same amateur service rules. That petition remains pending. Expert has asserted that there should be no gain limitation on amplifiers sold or used in the amateur service. Most commenters supported Expert's waiver request, but a couple of commenters, including Flex Radio, which supports a rule change, expressed concerns about granting a waiver to Expert alone. The FCC said it would rather give full consideration to the pending issues and apply the result of the rulemaking proceeding to all amateur radio service equipment. The Commission said rule waivers generally are not warranted merely to accommodate technical parameters that are based solely on harmonization with the manufacturer's products available abroad.
Online, via podcast, and on repeaters throughout North America, you're listening to ARRL Audio News.
Now with this week's satellite update, here's Bruce Page, KK5DO.
Another CubeSat is in the queue for launch, Tomsk TPU-120, that may be deployed during a Russian spacewalk or EVA this July. The call sign of the satellite is RS-4S. We will have more information as we get closer to launch. The talk of hams for the past week or so has been BY70-1. It was launched on December 28th, and the FM repeater is working. Contacts have been made on 145.920 megahertz for the uplink and 436.200 megahertz for the downlink. You may have to do a little correction for Doppler on both frequencies. There's also a delay on the downlink as the CubeSat processes the uplink. If you remember AO10 and AO13 days with the delays. There's also a camera on the satellite and telemetry on a 9600 BPS BPSK downlink. Enjoy the current and future satellites. This is Bruce Page, KK5DO, for the ARRL Audio News.
The Amateur Radio on the International Space Station, or ARRS program, in late December announced a notable contribution from the Quarter Century Wireless Association to help support the development and certification of new radio hardware for the International Space Station. ARRS International Chair Frank Bauer, KA3HDO, thanked the QCWA for its contribution and said that it arrived at a most critical time. Our radio system design is nearly complete, and we're about to start fabrication and the very expensive hardware certification effort, Bauer said. It is fantastic to see amateur radio groups like QCWA donating to ARRS, as it demonstrates to our larger benefactors and potential sponsors that the amateur radio community has skin in the game and is willing to sacrifice to further the ARRS cause. QCWA President Ken Elke, VE6AFO, expressed the hope that the donation might inspire other groups and individuals to follow suit. ARRS reports its hardware team has made good progress over the past year in developing the new radio system. But the October failure of the 17-year-old Ericsson VHF handheld in the ISS Columbus module made the completion of the project far more urgent. ARRS welcomes donations toward the hardware upgrade project via the AMSAT website.
The Boy Scouts of America have updated the requirements for the Radio Merit Badge for 2017. A new option for the Radio Merit Badge is Amateur Radio Direction Finding, or ARDF. ARRL ARDF Coordinator Joe Mole, K0OV, said he's excited about the move, and he credited Jamboree on the Air Coordinator and K2BSA Trustee Jim Wilson, K5ND, with being the spark plug behind the ARDF edition. Jim visited a training session at the USA ARDF Championships in Texas last April and realized what an excellent activity that on-foot hidden transmitter hunting can be for scouts, Mo recounted. Working with Brian Coleman, KB0MAP, Jim authored the new ARDF Radio Merit Badge syllabus, which was then reviewed by several leaders of the U.S. ARDF community. A first draft of the new Merit Badge pamphlet is anticipated later this month or in early February. Mole said the new Merit Badge requirements should become effective just in time for the July 2017 National Scout Jamboree in West Virginia, where an ARDF course and equipment will be available to scouts of all ages. He also hopes there could be a role for ARDF in JOTA. The Radio Merit Badge ARDF option combines orienteering and fox hunting and opens a new interactive component to this program. Other new Radio Merit Badge options include cellular telephones and different types of radio modulation.
The ARRL Board of Directors Executive Committee has approved education and technology program grants to schools in Illinois, California, Ohio, and Connecticut. The funds will help 3 of the schools to establish amateur radio club stations by providing the necessary equipment and aid 1 school in getting its radio club off the ground. Ziegler-Royalton High School in rural Ziegler, Illinois, Sato Academy in Long Beach, California, and Pickaway-Ross Career and Technology Center in Chillicothe, Ohio will receive station grants, while E.O. Smith High School in Mansfield, Connecticut will receive a progress grant, enabling it to build upon the school's burgeoning amateur radio program. Sponsors for all 4 grants are alumni of the ARRL Teachers Institute on Wireless Technology, who are implementing amateur radio as part of their school's curriculum. More information on ARRL Education and Technology Program grants for schools can be found on the ARRL website.
Hi, I'm ARRL member Matthew Mitchin, AE8MM of Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio, and you're listening to ARRL Audio News.
Restoring Old Radios is the topic of the latest episode of the ARRL The Doctor Is In podcast. Sponsored by DX Engineering, ARRL The Doctor Is In is an informative discussion of all things technical. Listen on your computer, tablet, or smartphone, whenever and wherever you like. Every 2 weeks, your host, QST Editor-in-Chief Steve Ford, WB8IMY, and the doctor himself, Joel Hallis, W1ZR, will discuss a broad range of technical topics. You can also email your questions to doctor@arrl.org, and the doctor may answer them in a future podcast. Enjoy ARRL The Doctor Is In on Apple iTunes or through most podcast apps. You can also listen online like Blueberry or through the free Stitcher app for iOS, Kindle, or Android devices.
And finally, the Ham Science Citizen Investigation, or HamSci scientists, were among those taking part in the fall meeting of the American Geophysical Union in San Francisco earlier this month. The December 11th through 17th gathering, which attracted some 24,000 geoscientists, offered an opportunity for HamSci scientists to present amateur radio-based research, discuss possibilities for upcoming experiments, and network with members of the citizen science and space science communities. 2 young university-affiliated radio amateurs, Nathaniel Frizzell, W2NAF, a postdoctoral research associate at the New Jersey Institute of Technology, and Virginia Tech undergraduate researcher Magda Moses, KM4EGE, offered poster presentations at the AGU meeting. Frizzell said he feels the radio amateurs made a good impression. Frizzell's presentation discussed amateur radio and HamSci's objectives and demonstrated how the reverse beacon network can serve as a scientific instrument. It also outlined plans for the Solar Eclipse QSO party this August. Moses called the fall AGU meeting the most scientifically diverse conference she's ever attended. Her presentation described propagation experiments between Blacksburg, Virginia, and Newark, New Jersey, aimed at better understanding the use of HF links for characterizing the ionosphere during the total solar eclipse later this year. A HamSci booth at Hamvention 2017 will include a display table and the program for a 90-minute ARRL-sponsored forum.
And that concludes ARRL Audio News for this week. Our thanks to all contributors to this week's report. ARRL Audio News is produced by the American Radio Relay League, the National Association for Amateur Radio. For more information on amateur radio or the ARRL, visit us on the web at arrl.org. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram by searching for ARRL. If you have a question or comment about audio news, email us at audionews@arrl.org. This program is copyright 2017 ARRL, all rights reserved. Until next week, I'm Carla Pereira.
And I'm Sean Kutzko, KX9X 73, and thanks for listening.